Yeah, very, very special zechut for me to be here tonight in this position, talking about Rabbi Twerski and our family known as Saba Shia. 25 years ago, we first married Bubby. She should live and be well. So discussion what to call him, and the psak was Saba Shia. So he's our Saba Shia. So I might call him Rabbi Twerski, I might call him Saba Shia. And we were zoche, 25 years, a very, very special relationship, and especially the last few years when they moved to Yerushalayim, so every other week by us for Shabbat, and in touch all the time, a big, big, big zechut. And it's hard to believe it's coming to a year already, but thanks to Mort and the Herculean efforts that we're really able to perpetuate Rabbi Twerski Saba Shia's memory in such a meaningful way through the AJT Center. So there's a lot of sources here, 6 pages, and not really enough time to go through it properly, but there's a lot of important quotes, and I hope you take the handout home with you. There's a lot of lessons here. It's not just, oh, wow, I know someone who's in a 12 Steps program, and now I'm a little bit more familiar with it after hearing the discussion tonight. I think there's a lot more to our little shiur or lecture tonight than just knowing about the 12 steps, and as we'll see as we go on. So my exposure to this world started with Saba Shia, with Rabbi Twerski, when it was not that long after they got married, after Bubby and Saba Shia got married, that he said, Danny, you really ought to go to an AA meeting, which I was a little insulted. And I started walking a straight line, and I smelled my breath. I said, Saba Shia, why? I'm not a big drinker. That's not my thing. Even the little l'chaims, it's just not unsuccessfully, for about 57 years, have not fulfilled the mitzvah of Adalo Yada on Purim. And the kids always tell me, a little bit more, we want to see you drunk. So Saba Shia, what's this all about? Just go. Danny, just go. Just go. You'll see. So I was a Rabbi out in the 5 towns in Lawrence and Rambam Masifta. So there's different kinds of meetings. It's called an open meeting and a closed meeting. Closed meeting is only for someone who's part of the society, who himself is an addict. We say AA is Alcoholics Anonymous, but really at this point there's 12 steps meeting for everything, for Debtors Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, sexual SA for that group as well. It's endless, but we'll refer to AA because that was the original one. And then there's an open meeting that anyone could go to. So obviously I went to find an open one, and it was 25 years ago before you just go ahead and Google it, but there were books around and where they had pamphlets of where the meetings. I figured Long Beach, that's far enough away. I didn't want the principal of Rambam Masifta, people coming to him and saying, I didn't know that your 9th grade Rebbe is going to meetings, and anything we need to know. Graduating 8th grade, and he was like the big Rebbe. And so I went to Long Beach, and God has the best sense of humor. I walk into Long Beach, and right away, hey, Ray Myers, how you doing? It was in a room, I don't remember it was. I don't know if it was a shul or a school, a public school, and they have a little room for a meeting over there. Luckily, it was one of Saba Shia's Talmidim, and he right away said, oh yeah, he didn't say Saba Shia. All his beloved Talmidim called him, anyone know? Abe. Said, Abe told you to come here, right? Said, yeah, he tells everyone to come. So I said, okay, Baruch Hashem. He knew that it was just for me to go and get an insight into what this world's about. And it was an amazing meeting. I'm only sorry that I went 25 years ago and haven't gone since. Saba Shia, Rabbi Twerski went a lot. To see people sitting around in a circle, and one person opens up, hi, I'm John, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, John. And then he talks about his story. And to have that self-knowledge, self-awareness. We're amazing. Every one of us in the room is incredible at awareness about the other person. Each one of us could point to the neighbor and we could talk about every problem that person has. We're expert kohanim that could see the tzara'as in everyone. But how many of us can see our own tzara'as? That's a rare breed. And at the meeting, it was just talking about themselves and understanding like you've never seen before. And that's what Sabashi wanted me to see. These people have knowledge, introspection, just a different league. Something we could just hope for and have moments of clarity here and there that maybe we can have that awareness. But they live and breathe it. And when we talk about the Yetzer Hara that we're up against, and we give lip service to it, we mean it, we don't mean it, they live and breathe it. So let's call him John. I think that really was his name. And John, he was speaking about his story. He was a successful lawyer, and then everything went south. And he said, but because of you guys, because of this group, this society, this brotherhood, I've been clean. And I was waiting I'm clean for 10 years, for 10 months. I haven't taken a drink today. It was 8:30 in the morning. And he was not joking. Every minute is a struggle. His natural pull is to go to that drink. And it's a constant battle. He understands it and he fights it. But because of that group, that support, he made it to 8:30 so far. And he was legitimately proud. It's like, wow, this is a different world. And now I'm thinking they're sitting over there, just minding my own business in the back, hoping no one's going to call on me and just do my thing there. And this is amazing. And that was my first insight. And that's what Sabashi was pushing me to do, just to get that. I didn't follow up. I should have followed up more at the meetings, but I did follow up over the years reading about it and learning about it. In no way am I an expert. There's people who live and breathe and work in this field. But I thought I'll put together some quotes from someone, the Gentile, who I probably have the most respect for in anyone in the world, from Bill, who started this whole society. And I'm not trying to claim expertise, just sharing some of the knowledge with you of things that I've seen over the years. So let's go through. I can't go through everything, but at least some of it. So on page 1, you have a open meeting versus a closed meeting. We mentioned what that is. A life-saving form of arevut. I'm only alive because of you fellows. It's amazing. This is arevut. This is people helping each other, sponsoring people, guiding at 4 a.m. This one's calling his sponsor, and of course he's going to answer. This is arevut, taking to a different level. Arevim means we are bound. We are co-signers. That's that whole world that Bill created. We mentioned that a new meaning to the concept of introspection. And then D, exploring the life, thoughts, and deeds of Bill Doug, one of the most influential and heroic people of the 20th century. And the history is in the AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is known as the Big Book. Okay, he was an amazing writer, a prolific writer. You'll see all the quotes. He wrote in the Grapevine, it's a funny name, for their monthly magazine in the 40s, 50s, 60s. You could Google it. You'll see them. And he was a beautiful writer. And then this is a book about the whole society, how they put it together in the 30s and 40s, 50s. He died in 71. Not so many of us, most of us in the room were living during his time. I always joke that, because I honestly look at him as one of the heroic people of the last 100 years. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he didn't affect thousands, millions, possibly billions, because every 12-step program around the world, here in Beit Shemesh, around the corner from us, there are meetings, all different types. Every person in every meeting who benefits from that, it goes back to whom? To Bill. So there are hundreds of thousands of people just in Beit Shemesh. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And then Rabbi Twerski brought it and he kashered it and gave it a hashgacha for the Jewish world. So there's a chuyot that Bill and Rabbi Twerski had. It's just not normal if you think of what's going on here. So he was a brilliant guy. He's in the stock market. He's making money. But he enjoyed a drink here, enjoyed a drink there. And then things kept slipping and slipping and slipping till he was in the hospital. And He almost died a few times. And a friend came over to him. He said, okay, thought you're going to enjoy another nice drink together. And sure enough, the guy said, no, I stopped it. He said, what a loser. Why'd you do that? No, I found God. And Bill believed in some kind of God, but not a God that relates to us. More like a philosophical kind of God. And he was skeptical, but he spoke to him. And Bill realized that he's losing everything quick. Of course, he could feel he's losing everything quick, then a minute later he's going to be drinking again. It was a total disconnect like people have. But it hit him, and then he started developing the program. And this is in the 30s and 40s, and then he just put his genius to it. He worked with Dr. Bob, who is an amazing tzaddik of a person as well. And these two heroes put together the program. And now, in E, the importance and even indispensability of firm mavericks such as Rabbi Twerski Zatzal. To me, the idea of a maverick in Judaism is crucial. You need to be halachic. You need to be part of our Masorah without question. Keep all the minhagim of Klal Yisrael. But you need to have that little bit of ability to think outside the box. I'm not talking about every gadol. Every gadol, every rabbi who just to follow the path and the previous gadolim and just go down that line is beautiful. You need mavericks, in my opinion, who are anchored in the Masorah without question, but able to look a bit outside the box and to go ahead and take this, quote, Gentile program and give a hashgacha to it. That's a maverick. And the only way you could do that is if you're an expert in two fields, Torah, and whatever that field you're giving a hashgacha to. And here, of course, it's this 12-step program, and you say, what, you need to be a big maverick? I go to my doctor, a Gentile doctor, who's giving him a hashgacha. Because that's just medicine. That's pretty neutral. Well, and corona and medicine and vaccines, I guess even medicine is not so simple anymore. But I go for a strep test, I go for a minor surgery. You don't need someone to give a hashgacha to that usually. But here, this program is talking about what? Very religious concepts. God, as you know it, as you perceive him. Free will, bechira chavshis. The inability to have free will. Wait a second. Is this 12-step program magical? Is it beautiful? Is it in line with Judaism? Or is it antithetical to Judaism? That's not simple. And you need a Rabbi Twerski to go ahead, give his stamp, and say, yes, this is good. This is acceptable. This is noble. This is proper. So we have to appreciate what happened over here. If you didn't have an expert in the two worlds, the Torah world and the 12-step world, psychiatry, psychology, and the 12 steps program and dependence, I don't know where the Jewish world would be. We may not be having all these meetings around the corner from us. So it's just amazing what he did. And he was so anchored in the Masorah and the Lavush and his Hasidic address that there was no question. He was in the Orthodox Torah world, but he had that ability. There's a cute story, because we had a great relationship. Baruch Hashem, it was Torah, and he introduced the whole family to Hasidic avorts and always cute ways of looking at the psukim, which he just was an endless reservoir of drushes from this Rebbe and that Rebbe. And then every time we had a meal, he says, Danny, and the whole table, he says, it says, each one has his chelek. So then we knew he's about to introduce what? His own idea. Chalkeinu, each one has a chelek. He says, I'll tell you though how to learn the pasuk. I'll tell you the vort and the davening over here. But that's part of his divrei Torah, but most of it was just keeping all the Hasidic Torah and keeping the Masorah going. And he was so into the Masorah, which is why the world was able to accept him, the Torah world, Because I remember once, Friday night when you come home from shul in the summertime and you make early Shabbat, which is not a simple thing, but when you start the meal, you have to say Shema again. It's not the simplest thing to do early Shabbat. It's a bit of a challenge, but one of the challenges, according to simple Pshat Halacha, you have to start the meal when? At least a half hour before nighttime. Because otherwise, there's a whole shayla that you might forget to say Shema. You have to repeat Shema again. So we were hurrying up, and we didn't really make it in time, and we're getting to the table, and the Zman is hitting like in the next 3 minutes. So I went right to Kiddush, and we'll do Eishes Chayil and Shalom Aleichem and do all the brachos after Hamotzi. So Savashi, after we did Hamotzi, he gives me a look, and I know I'm in trouble. You put on your Danny, you put on your socks first or your shoes? Usually, I grew up in Bell Harbor. I don't know why you wear socks or shoes. I grew up on the beach. But I live in Beit Shemesh. I'm a rabbi, so I do have to dress properly. So I said, well, I do put on shoes and then socks. Good. You put on your shirt. I got it wrong? Oh. Now you know why he gave me Musar. You put on your shirt first or your undershirt? I think the undershirt. Good. So far I'm passing the test. He says, you know what else you do? Shalom Aleichem, Eishes Chayil, the brachos, and then Kiddush. I said, okay, I got you. I hear you. There's a Masorah, there's minhagim, and you keep the minhagim. Okay, in this specific case, luckily I didn't think it was so simple. Why? Just made sure all the next few Shabbases, we just made sure to, get home from shul quicker, not so much schmoozing on Friday night. Let's get the meal started so we get everything in the right order and the right timing. But he was such a stickler for minhagim and the Masorah, which was amazing and crucial for his success. Not his success. I don't think he needed to have success by people following him. For our success, that Klal Yisrael and the Gedolim accepted him and his stamp of approval because he's clearly in the Masorah. So it's just important to know what happened over here. It's very, very big. It's very, very big. So tremendous hakaras hatov to the maverick within the Masorah, and of course to Bobby. You should live and be well by his side for 25 years, and especially in the last few years as he got weaker and weaker, and always there. Tremendous, tremendous team, and Yitz Hashem, we should have many good years together with continued nachas. And an expert about Torah Chachma is crucial to guide Klal Yisrael when the two wisdoms intersect. And the examples, medicine, what's considered folklore, what's real medicine, what's superstitious kind of stuff, evolution, you can teach evolution in yeshiva, that's heretical, it's not heretical, so you need an expert in Torah. And what is evolution saying? Evolution is saying there is no soul, there is a soul, 15 billion. You need experts to guide us in these kinds of things, age of the universe. So these kind of questions, you need the Gedolim, you need the experts. And where's Earth? Are we at the center of the universe, like was believed many centuries ago? And then 12 steps. So I hope we appreciate what Shabashia did. It was big. It was very, very big. And then tragic example in Tzfat, and he introduced a new concept. A new concept. Because as believing Jews, what do we maintain? What do we maintain as believing Jews? I go ahead and I'm at work. 10:30, there's a break. We're all around the coffee machine. And the boss was in an extra bad mood today. So there is a good, juicy conversation going on. And the boss screamed at me. So I really want to hear what everyone has to say about the boss, and I want to contribute. So I have what's known as a Yetzer Hara, a desire to give and receive. I want to give some good dirt about the boss and join the conversation. And I want to receive some good stuff back. That's my Yetzer Hara. We all love a good, juicy piece of gossip. And there's a desire to listen to that. And then, say, wait a second, that's usher. I have no heter. It's not to'elet, which legitimizes it at times. You go to a therapist, there may be times you're talking about this person, that's to'elet, it's a purpose. There's no purpose here. It's just because you're angry at your boss. There's no legitimate reason. You have no heter whatsoever. So you have a battle between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. And that's the whole Torah. Anytime there's a temptation, you have to battle it out. You want to go ahead and go to shear, but your boys just called you to play ball now. But you have a shear now. So you have a battle. That's life. You want to go and do this, and your wife's saying, no, you put the kids in, and I'll put the kids in now. That's all these things that this daily, weekly, yearly battles that we have. Yetzer hara is this way. So that's it. It's a lot more complex, obviously, but that's the rules. So Rabbi Twerski, by bringing in the 12 Steps program into the Jewish world, he said it's not true. Maybe 90-something% of the world, it's that way, the Jewish world as well. But sometimes it's not that. And you can't just overcome your Yetzer hara with your Yetzer tov. It's just not the case. And I remember years ago, someone came to me, a couple going through Gehenna, and he was drinking. They had 2 kids already, and said, what happened? Yeah, he was drinking a lot when we were engaged, and I went to his Rabbi in Tzfat and said he's drinking a lot. And the Rabbi said, only take wine when? Friday night and Shabbos morning at Kiddush. The Rabbi had absolutely no understanding that there's something called what? Addiction. And telling him not to have wine at this time, only at that time, nothing. It's meaningless. And then 4 years later, 2 kids later, and a broken family and divorced, and that was it. And then he tried getting into the house when there was restriction against him. She called the police. He was in jail. I remember visiting him in jail. It was so pathetic. And it didn't have to go that way. And that's why Sabbashi used to always say, Ya'atz Nura. When we say Ya'atz Nura, it's referring to people that give advice on areas they have no idea what they're talking about. And he maintained, and I agree totally, that to look at every challenge in life, we have a desire, a Yetzer hara, then the Yetzer tov, and we have to just be strong, be a gibor, overcome it. That works most of the time. If it's an addiction, it's a different planet. You need to have a new set of rules. And that was one of his chidushim, a major chidush. And if you don't have this new rule book called the 12 Steps program, and you're not following it to the T, you will not overcome that Yetzer hara. You will not. Now, there are other approaches that developed over the years. And I'm a big fan of the Science Times. The New York Times is a disgusting paper. The only reason God lets it exist is because on Tuesday, there's a special section called the Science Times. The rest of it could be burned. And over the years, they do bring other approaches to dealing with addiction. And I mentioned to them when I read those articles, and my Twerski said, this has a track record. All these new things, the ones that say you could still drink a little bit here and there, and you don't need the meetings. This is maybe, I'm not going to say for sure they don't work, but this I see works. I've lived and breathed it with all my people, and this works. So Bill, and we can only read some of these quotes. I kept putting more and more quotes together because I wanted you to understand Bill's world, because he's the one who created this, and he was brilliant. Right? Twerski and I always said, did he learn through all of Chazal and Torah? Because you see what he says, it's just crazy. One insight after another, and he built this incredible world. So just a couple, and I'm sorry I can't go through all of them, but that's why I printed the handout so you could take them home and enjoy. The fact is that most alcoholics have lost the power of choice in drink. We are without defense against the first drink. Meaning, this is not, I have a Yetzer hara to drink and I'll overcome. No. The bechira is gone. Pain's a touchdown of spiritual progress. We AAs know that the pains of alcoholism had to come before sobriety, an emotional turmoil before serenity. The pain that we had to go through, we knew that was part of our growth. And that is such a Chazal concept. We all know it. What does it say? Sheva Yipol. What does it say? What's going to happen to the tzaddik? He's going to fall and he's going to get up. That's life. And these people lived and breathed through falling, and that's how we grow. And of course, we must never believe and see that we're blinded, the philosophy that we're just hapless victims. And that's it. This is chance. There's no real free will. No, we of course have free will. But then if you're saying if we don't have free will, alcoholics, and we're gone, So what's our hope? So we do have the ability to choose not to fight against this drink or that drink, to be part of a program, and through that program, then we have a chance to survive. So on the next page, listen to this unbelievable line. E, if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. Anger is the dubious luxury of normal men. But for us alcoholics, it's poison. So a normal person gets angry. Now the Masorah's course is very against anger, obviously. But you can still survive. Not an alcoholic. Once you get angry, it's just a slippery slope. It's just a different set of rules for a person with an addiction. He always spoke about alcoholics, but it really means anyone. We have found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It's open to all mankind. His belief in God, he was brilliant because he didn't want to go ahead and turn people off. So he always used God. He said the word God directly, or Lord, or he said in the 12 steps, what did he use? God as we see him, as we're going to see in the next page. He wanted to give each person his own concept of God. As a frum Jew, we say Hashem. But he was brilliant. He believed in God. He said, without God and our hope from God, we cannot make it. But he gave people a little bit of leeway of where to go with that. He speaks about a person slipping and falling. He says, don't go ahead and have yesh, ein yesh ba'olam. Why is Rav Nachman Breslov died a few hundred years ago? There's been no Rebbe since him. Why is he so popular today? So there's many reasons why Breslov Hasidus is so popular. But one of the clearest reasons is because one of the most fundamental points of Rav Nachman is what? Ein what? Ein yesh ba'olam. There is no despair. And here people were writing him. He wrote letters. He wrote like, quote, Lahavdil Shalos Uchuvos to people. He wrote the big book. He wrote in the Grapevine magazine. He was just prolific. And people were coming to me, and I joined the group. I was clean for 3 weeks, and I'm done again. I'm finished. I'm drinking again. There's no yesh. Get back up and listen to this line. Is this not a Jewish line? Is this not a Jewish line? In G, about sippas, I would not be too discouraged. For some reason or another, the Lord has laid out tougher paths for some of us. And I guess you're treading one of them. God is not asking us to be successful. He's only asking us to try to be. That you surely are doing. Above all, take it one day at a time. What line is that? Anu amelim, v'heim amelim. Anu amelim, v'kablim schar. It's the process. It worked out, it didn't work out. The result, it's the process. You're working through the steps. You're working, you slipped. Get back on. And that's such a fundamental part of our belief. He spoke about Dr. Bob, which was just, he doesn't get the same credit as Dr. Bill, but Dr. Bob, of course, was a crucial part. Now, I is an amazing line. And this line, I think we should all know by heart and be prepared to say it. I found it very, very helpful. Last year, I started a new job. Baruch Hashem, I was in Dachinon. We raised the kids from the diapers. And I started a new place last year, Magen Avot. A wonderful, wonderful school. See some parents here. And it's a new world I'm entering, where Dachinon, the Rebbe started with me, and the kids started with me, and I raised the whole place. Here, you have 25 years of Rebbes who were there before me. They were my kids' Rebbes 20 plus years ago. And everyone's there. There's a whole system running over here. And beautiful, Baruch Hashem, incredible success. Now it's registration for next year for high schools and the kids, and everyone's getting in, and all this high school principals calling me about this kid. They're fighting over the kids. Baruch Hashem, amazing. But it's a new place. I'm new. They're not new. Wait a second, and let's see, certain things are beautiful, certain things I want to change. But there's already a 25-year pattern over here. So do you know how many times last year I said this prayer? I sit with Rav Kabernik, my beloved partner, working day and night together. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Wow. To accept certain things about our reality, I cannot change that. Other things I can, and I'm going to work really hard. And then I need courage to do that and the wisdom to know which is category A. I can't change that. Just leave it be. Maybe timing is not the way I would want it to be, and this is not the way, and the amount of testing, and this, that. Okay, just certain things you have to understand, just not now. That serenity prayer is amazing. Now, people attribute the serenity prayer to whom? Bill. It's actually not Bill. It was from a theologian who did it, how actually happened to die the same year, but Bill certainly embraced it. We treasure our serenity prayer because it brings a new light to us that can dissipate our old time and nearly fatal habit of fooling ourselves. In the Raises prayer, we see that defeat, rightly accepted, need not be a disaster. So you embrace that prayer, and I think all of us we should all know that by heart. Every challenge in life, I can overcome this, and I should overcome it. I'm going to put everything into it. I'm going to work in this relationship. I could. And other times not. And the ability, the wisdom to know the difference. So that was not an AA invention, but it certainly was an AA and is an AA idea. And he goes on a lot of more beautiful quotes, but we can't go through. We're going to go to the next three. Now, here, this is the 12-step program with some of Rabbi Twerski's comments on it, an explanation. And as I said, he's the one that said, this is kosher. And we all know in Israel, any restaurant or any item of food you get, you have 25 different hashgachas, right? And you have kosher mahadrin, halak, badatz, and you have every type of level of kashrus, right? Everyone thinks it's like Hanukkah. In the Shulchan Aruch, the only time in the Shulchan Aruch mentions mahadrin, and mahadrin is where? Hanukkah. But we've taken that to kashrus as well. So what level of kashrus is Saba Shia giving to the 12 steps? Is kosher? It's all right. It's kosher lachatchila, or it's mehudar. You're buying tefillin. You have b'diavad, you have lachatchila, and then you have mehudar, with all the extra stringencies. So where did he put the 12 steps? Mehudar. This is great. This is wonderful. For addicts, it's life-saving, and even for non, this is good. This is a mehudar. And he worked through the steps like only he could. It's funny, people told me whose lives were saved by him over the years, they said what they cannot understand about Rabbi Twerski is that the whole society lives off of the 12-step society. That whole fellowship, who is helping the next? Whom? Who is helping whom? Someone who is in recovery is helping someone who's trying to be in recovery. That's it. Because he, who's now clean for 10 years, can be the sponsor for someone who's just starting off, because there's nothing like what in life? Life experience. Al tadin et chavercha. Don't judge your friend until what? You don't have a clue what he's going through. You have no clue what he's going through. You're not in his shoes. So you can't understand. So many people told me, like, how did Rabbi Twerski, who's clean his whole life, how does he become the guru in this area? He never experienced a desire that overpowered him and forced him onto a self-destructive path. He never had that. He had feelings like we all had, sadness and happiness and anger and whatever it was, but there was no addiction that destroyed him and brought him back to life. And it was a pella. It was a wonder. But somehow that's what made him unique. Even if someone goes through it and recovers and then builds a program and gives it a stamp of approval for the Jewish world, it's also amazing. But he didn't have to go that path. It was just another amazing thing. So he works through the 12 steps, and you could Google. This is, I didn't create Rabbi Twerski on the 12 steps. He has videos on YouTube explaining the 12 steps. Aish Kodesh, he has an article by, not Aish Kodesh, that's our wonderful shul next door, Aish Torah, the website. And thank you more for that reference, it was helpful. Has it all written out. And it's funny because when I was first looking at all of it, I said, no, you see his video, that's obviously him. And then you see the article for the Torah website, and like, wait a second. I don't see one place where they're quoting Sabashia. And this is exactly what he said on the video. And Torah is not going to plagiarize, and they're not going to do that. Then I looked, I'm scrolling. I didn't look at the very top. Who wrote the article for Torah? Rabbi Twerski. So it's right there, where he's the one. Torah, one of the most popular Jewish websites in the world. When you look up the 12 steps, who's koshering it? Obviously, it's him. And he goes through each step. We'll go through some of it. And then, as I said, this is a reference that I hope you take home and enjoy. We admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So powerless. Wait, can a Jew say that? We're powerless. We have a Yetzer Tov that to overcome. What do you mean powerless? That's not part of the Jewish lexicon. And Sabashia says that's not true. It is. This is essentially the Talmudic statement that one's Yetzer Hara increases in strength every day. Were not for the help of God, one would not be able to withstand it. In other words, without the help of God, we are powerless over the Yetzer Hara. The Talmud relates 2 of our most righteous rabbis were tempted by Satan, were in the process, of submitting to the sin. Were saved only by intervention of God. To sin is a temporary insanity. That we are powerless to resist the temptation to sin without God's help. So he says, no, this is a legitimate idea, that there are times that it's too strong and you need God's help. And these people who have caved in and slipped and lost their balance in life, yes, that is a very good statement. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. That's why he used that term to try to have many people include without monopolizing this religion and that religion and turning people off. God, as we understood Him, has been a source of confusion. It was meant to avoid reference to the deity of any religion. And therefore, he says we could just use the word Hashem and set aside your own will and favor. And he keeps showing how Chazal, these statements are in line with Chazal. 4, searching fearless moral inventory of ourselves. You don't need to be Rabbi Twerski. A moral inventory of ourselves. What term comes to your mind? Cheshbon HaNefesh. Cheshbon HaNefesh. That's exactly it, which of course he quotes sources about Cheshbon HaNefesh to make a reckoning, an inventory, and seeing all our assets, our liabilities. And he says, make sure when you go into your liabilities, see your assets too. You don't want to get yourself down. 6, admit it to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. And once again, the step has been misconstrued as being the Catholic confession. And it's not. He quotes one of the great Hasidic masters, that a person should avail oneself of a trusted friend. This is an interesting one. To whom one can... Thank you. That's good water. You remember that, right? To whom one can admit everything has done. That's an interesting idea. Something to think about. Rabbi Eliezer says you should have a trusted friend to whom one can admit everything he has done, and even the objectionable thoughts and desires one has harbored. Verbalizing these breaks the hold of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Amazing. Big chiddush to talk things over with a friend and a confidant. The thoughts you're having, the struggles you're having. So that's one of the steps. And tell ready to have God remove all the defects of character. 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. We generally can control our behavior, but we have little or no control over some of our feelings. Evident for the Talmud that we are born with some character traits. And it talks about the Chafetz Chaim who daven to Hashem to try to relieve him of the feelings of anger. So we must go ahead and do all of our homework, he says. But we also, this is how one becomes ready to have God remove all these defects. You can't just go ahead and not work and just have God remove all my defects. Obviously, you have to do your work. And then you do whatever's in your power. We ask Hashem, help. I've done what I could do. Please help me out. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So go ahead and say, hey, listen, I got to tell you something. In one of my drunk states, and I just went ahead, I said things about you at work to other people, and I really feel I just trashed you. But I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He's saying no. He's saying don't do that. except when to do so would injure them. That's going to hurt him. You did what? What did you say about me? How do you do that? And the guy's going to feel worse. Yeah, but you're becoming clean now because you're relieving yourself of that burden, and you told him. No. And Rabbi Twerski says this is amazing, that Bill was mechavein. He leaned towards the position of a Yisrael Salanter against the Chafetz Chaim. That's what he says now. The Talmud says on page 5 that whereas a person's sins are forgiven on Yom Kippur, this does not apply to offenses committed against another person. But because another person, I don't care, you can daven to God all day and all night. You owe him money. You banged into his car at 3 a.m. He never saw it. You never paid him. No way. God says, get out of here. You make amends with him. Divine forgiveness can only if genuine sought forgiveness from the other person. It's an interesting difference of opinion between the ethicists whether a person should seek to make amends if doing so would be displeasing to the victim. A man asked me to forgive him for having spread a bad rumor about me. I did forgive him, but I wish he'd not told me about this. I was worried about what the bad rumors might be circulating about me. So very nice. I forgive you, you're clean, but I feel terrible. You said that about me. So in such case, Yisrael Salan said that one would be better not asking for forgiveness. You can't go ahead. To clean your slate, you'll go ahead and say, yes, I ratted about you. I said the most horrible things about you. But I feel bad. You forgive me? He feels like garbage. Yeah, but I want to get a clean slate. I need your forgiveness. The poskim say halacha l'maisa. What do the poskim say to do when you're in such a bind? You're in a bind now. What do they say to do? Anyone met? No? Because according to some, you have to go, I did this and this. And you get clean. Exactly. So maybe before, because really, we think you ask forgiveness the day before Yom Kippur. It's not true. When are you supposed to ask forgiveness? Any day. In business, you said something nasty to him, to your wife, to your children, you screamed. And it wasn't for the sake of chinuch. You convinced yourself it was, but a day later, you was just, your boss screamed at you, so you scream at your kids. And you realize that. So that day you should ask for forgiveness. They don't wait for Erev Yom Kippur. But maybe here, when you go before Yom Kippur, it's to someone, and you won't arouse a suspicion that you say, listen, without getting told details, I ask forgiveness if I've done anything. So that's the compromise. But he says, Savashi, I was amused right before step 10 that Bill Wilson, he did have a last name, had gravitated to the opinion of Rabbi Yisrael Salan. So not only does he kid upon this chazal, that chazal, in the machlokes, Chafetz Chaim, Yisrael Salan, he paskined. It's an amazing thing. And just wrapping things up, continue to take personal inventories. Number 10, Ali Shor says that one should carry a notebook, record occurrences of a moral, ethical nature, and one cannot emphasize strongly enough when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So he said these obvious things. Step 11, sort through prayer meditation to improve our conscience with God, praying only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry it out. Of course, the idea of davening to Hashem and asking, that's Shemon Esrei. 12, having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to alcoholics, that's any addict today, of course, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Torah teaches us we have a duty of mutual responsibility to one another. What is that term again? Koishal arevim zeh lazeh. The scriptural mitzvah of giving reproof for improper behavior. There's a concept of being musar. Indeed, on the last page, if one has a possibility of positively influencing another person and fails to do so, one is held responsible. You have some knowledge. You can help out this other person. You don't. You're part of his sin. Koishal arevim zeh lazeh goes both in the negative, that he's sinning and you're not stopping. You didn't try to stop him. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. It goes the other way too. The beautiful Chabadnik at the Kotel, wrapping tefillin, not just at the Kotel, but anywhere around the world. The Rabbi 50 years ago started something magnificent, the tefillin drive. And he's going ahead and put the tefillin on, and they have a lot of beautiful Masorti Jews here in Israel that they're happy to put on the tefillin. They know the bracha and everything. So I know what the bracha to make. So the Chabadnik makes the bracha. 100 times he makes the bracha. By the kotel. How's he making it 100 times? At 6:30 in the morning, the Chabadnik already made his bracha on his tefillin. How's he saying it 100 more times? So there's an unbelievable line. And it's not a hashkafa line. It's a halachic line. You know what the answer is? The Ran says that every time another Jew passes by with a chi of tefillin, then Zalman, the Chabadnik at the kotel, halachically has what upon him now? A chiyuv. A chiyuv. What do you mean a chiyuv? I put phone on 3 hours ago. I don't have any chiyuv. Yes, you do. Because Reuven and Shimon and John and Bob are passing by you, and each one of them has a chiyuv tefillin. You have a chiyuv tefillin. Well, I don't have a chiyuv. Yes, you do. That's our rivas. You are connected. You are so connected. And you must help this fellow Jew out. In terms of Isurim, make sure he doesn't violate, and make sure he keeps all the positive mitzvot. That there's one verse on which all the Torah depends. Know God in all your ways. Torah rejects it, given to God that which is his, and sees it to which is his. Rabbi Twerski writing. We then have two standards, one for religion and the other for the secular. We're required to practice the principle of Torah in all of our affairs. Which, of course, that's what Bill was pushing everyone. So it's so crucial. You read this 90 books. His with the interest in ideas in Chumash and Pirkei Avos and all of them, trailblazing ideas. But to me, one of the most incredible contributions that Twerski has made is going ahead and bringing this 12 steps to Orthodox Judaism, where people need help. The ideas of Bill are not only for addiction addicts. It's for anyone. It's for anyone. You read his books, and if you want a cute book as Bill sees, I don't know if it's available, I'm sure it is somewhere, as Bill sees it, where these are just his quotes and quotes and quotes from the Grapevine magazine and from the AA book, from the 12 Steps program. It's unbelievable. Insight after insight after insight. So he brought that world, which is not only for addicts, but especially for addicts, that he brought it alive. How many Jews have been saved? How many Gentiles have been saved by Rabbi Twerski bringing it into the world? And to Pittsburgh, and he had a place in Beersheba. It's mind-boggling to think what's happened over here to bring a whole new world and kosher it. I think it's just awe-inspiring to think of what he did. So all the books are amazing, but this to me is really one of his top of the many, many, many achievements to bring this whole movement into our world, the Torah world, the Jewish world. And in conclusion, my final conversation with Saba Shia, an exchange which demonstrated a complete internalization of all the wisdom from all sources, which he embraced, internalized, and passed on to all of mankind. So I've said this before. You may have read it in the Mishpach and the other places that wrote about it, but I'll say it again. I'll finish off with this. So a year ago, almost, when we had him by our house, and because Bubby had the corona, so we picked him up right away and brought him to our house, hopefully before he would catch it. And we thought we were successful, but obviously God had other plans. And then he had it. We tested him, took him to the place right out here, in the Merkaz, and came back positive, and that's it. Well, there's no reason to stay at us. The rest would be at home with Bubby. He felt totally fine. He felt totally fine, but he knew that 90-year-old gets corona. He knew. And we didn't. He's fine at our house. A full day after he said that he had it, he was totally fine. I'm driving him back. There's no reason to keep him away. And I'm driving back in the car. He says, Danny, you know the story in the shul, an out-of-town shul where the people weren't religious at all, and the rabbi worked day and night to get a mechitza eventually, and to work on this individual and then, and finally he got to Bob, and Bob, he said, Shabbos is an important day. It's great you come to shul, but it'll be even greater if you walk. You're not that far, you're a few blocks away. Instead of driving, just walk to shul. And I'll think about it, Rabbi, and eventually he did. A few months later, he says, Bob, it's amazing you walk into shul now, and in terms of your menu and what you eat, thank God, it's out-of-town community, but there's stores available for kosher food. And the rabbi knew Bob knew where the rabbi was going. He said, Rabbi, don't be a chazer. I'm keeping Shabbos. We're not talking about kosher food right now. I said, Sabashi, it's a cute story. What does that have to do with anything? And I remember we were passing Tzor Hadassah, 10 minutes away from our house. 15, 20 minutes away from Yerushalayim. I said, Ma Kesher, as we say in Israel, what's the connection? He said, I had 90 years. Amazing years. Hashem was so good to me. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. Amazing years with Bubby, with the family, and wow. Danny, I can't be a chazer. I said, so what are you getting at? You're fine. He was totally fine. And she said, you understand. I said, no, I don't. But he understood. And he was right. He knew he was another day already. He was on oxygen machines. 3 days later, he was gone. But he just took everything he learned. All the humility that our Masorah talks about, and that all the secular world that he knew so well about, the good, beautiful part of the secular world, the build part of that world, that he learned, he embraced, he internalized. Those ideas weren't abstract, it was him. That was his life. Now when it came to an end, which is one of those moments that really prove, where are you? You could talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? When death's at your doorstep, who are you? And we see just who he was. Someone who connected to Hashem, loved Hashem, appreciated Hashem, appreciated all the gifts Hashem gave him, and knew that it was time to say goodbye. It's amazing. He just took all this knowledge, shared it with the world, introduced it to the Jewish world, and internalized it, and then slowly, quietly moved on. It's amazing, amazing life. It's amazing that you're keeping his legacy going in such a beautiful, incredible, and professional manner. And I hope that we're zocheh to take the ideas that he brought to the world and took the ideas that he took from one world and gave it to us and kashered it for us, so to speak. And hopefully we could run with it, and we could grow with it, and we could continue with his angelic path. Rabbi.